Hi, I'm James with Lee Physical Therapy based in Chicago. Today what we're going to be talking about is lumbricals, how they're important when it comes to climbing, reasons why they get injured, and what you can do to help build up strength and help to rehab them and climb better. What are lumbricals? Lumbricals are these tiny muscles in the intrinsic of your hand. Think of them as like the core muscles of your hands. So these guys are tiny lumbricals, and where they attach is they actually attach to these flexor tendons. You have two different flexor tendons. One is called your flexor digitorum superficialis, which is not displayed here, but that allows you to just bend at the PIP joint here. So the flexor digitorum superficialis allows you to bend here, whereas the flexor digitorum profundus muscle allows you just to bend at the very tips here. So on each finger, when you're bending like this, typically when you're doing like a 3-finger drag, that engages the profundus muscle. But the reason why I have the profundus muscles displayed here is because the lumbricals actually attach to the flexor digitorum profundus. So it originates from the flexor tendons here, and they actually come and wrap around at each of the fingers, and they wrap around and they cross over this connective tissue called the extensor expansion. So the action of a lumbrical is they actually flex the metacarpal phalange joints, these big knuckles, and at the same time, they actually work on extending your IP joints, your PIP and DIP joint. So the action of the lumbricals, whenever these guys are primarily engaged, it's flexion of the MCP joint and then extension of your IP joints here. That plays a huge role in slopers. So as you're trying to make contact with that slopey edge or the slopey holds, it's very important to apply more of that direct pressure at the base of your fingers. So as you're like throwing and you're trying to land that hold, if there's no edge for you to like crimp onto, you have to have a flat hand, direct pressure, and those lumbricals play a big role in helping to stick onto the wall or the rock. Lumbricals play a huge role in climbing. I think there's a lot of times people neglect to actually utilize their lumbricals at a disadvantage, right? Because they play a huge role when it comes to crack climbing. You have to engage those lumbricals. They play a huge role when it comes to slopey climbs. So with slopers, like unless you're hitting a sloper and you find a nice little groove to like crimp onto, typically that's not really what slopers are meant for. You want to keep a flat hand, and in order to keep that tension and that stiffness, there's these lumbricals that play a huge role in applying pressure directly to the base of your fingers here. So when you're hitting that sloper, what's very important is your fingers don't have as much of an advantage to like hang on to those slopers, but those lumbricals is where that contact force is. You apply a lot of direct pressure into the base of your fingers, and that's what allows you to be able to stick onto those slopey holds a little bit better. Now, when injuries occur, a lot of times it's very common when people are doing like 2-finger pocket, whether you're doing a 2-finger pocket here or you're doing a 2-finger pocket here, a strain occurs at the lumbricals because these two muscles, the ring finger and the pinky, they are not unipennate, they're called bipennate muscles because they connect. There's two different anchor points here, right? And so for the ring finger, you can see how the muscles, you have attachment sites to the flexor tendon of the middle finger as well as the ring finger. And the pinky, you can see how the pinky lumbrical attaches to the flexor tendon of the ring finger as well as the pinky. So a real common issue that I see is when people are doing they say they go for a 2-finger pocket, whether it's a deep pocket or like a shallow pocket, because this muscle is attached to both of these flexor tendons. If you're not careful and you end up causing this pinky to come all the way down, right? You're pulling on this flexor tendon, which is connected to the lumbrical, but because this flexor tendon is anchored, it's gonna create a lot of this strain to the lumbrical. So whether you're doing a 2-finger pocket this way, you're gonna feel a lot of that strain in between the ring finger and the pinky. But also, if you were to do a 2-finger pocket with these 2 fingers, and you're not cautious, but you're just pulling down really hard here, because the ring finger is also, the lumbrical here is connected to the middle finger here. And if these guys are pulling down really hard, then you're gonna create a strain between the middle and the ring finger here. In order to prevent this from happening, one of the easiest ways to do it is as you're, like, let's say you're going for that 2-finger pocket, the rest of your fingers, you just wanna be cautious not to like over flex them, right? Because when you do that, you're creating a lot of that strain between those collagen crosslinks or the lumbricals. So an easy way to do it is even with a 1-finger pocket. Instead, especially at the metacarpophalangeal joint here, you don't want to fully flex all the way down here. You want to try to keep this joint more neutral position. By flexing it this way, that's way safer than doing it flexing all the way down here. So with that 2-finger pocket, try to keep that pinky sort of next to the ring finger. You just don't want to go all the way down like that. There's a lot of different ways that you can actually help to rehab your lumbricals or even develop some strength to them. I created a tool called the piton. Essentially, it's a really convenient way of engaging those lumbricals because once again, the action of the lumbrical is flexion of the MCP and full extension of the IP joints. And so you want to try to hold this position here. And a great way with this tool is you can apply pressure directly at the base of your fingers and holding that position as you're squeezing. And you can even feel free to use like dominoes or some type of small little tool just to try to apply that pressure. And what will happen is as you're trying to apply that pressure at the base of your fingers and you're trying to squeeze hard, naturally your fingers are just going to curl in because instinctively your muscle memory is going to want to just use your flexor tendons, which those muscles all originate at the forearm here, right? But with the action of the lumbrical, we're not really wanting to engage so much of your flexor tendon superficialis or profundus muscles. So we're trying to negate those guys and to actively engage those lumbricals. So pinch, trying to stay fully extended and just squeeze hard here. And you can even get a little active engagement, trying to keep the core muscles. I always like to think of the lumbricals as your core muscles of your hands, and just constantly pinching hard, preventing your fingers from wanting to curl in, keep them fully extended, and then just work this. You can do like 30 to 50 reps, or just go until you can start to feel like a burning sensation around deep inside your hand. You'll start to feel that burning sensation here. You may even start to feel like a burning sensation wrapped around the top of your fingers because that's where the lumbricals are attached. Another way to engage the lumbricals is using some type of weight where you want to keep your arm down fully by your side, but you're going to apply that direct pressure right at the base of your fingers or the proximal phalanx, these bones right here. So you're going to want to let this just hang right by your side. But once again, you're naturally, instinctively going to want to curl the fingers in, and you have to really fight that to actively engage those lumbricals. So you can hold that right by your side and maybe even just walk around in a circle for about 30 seconds. Rest for another 30 seconds to a minute and do around 5 reps of those. And you're gonna really start to feel a lot of that burning engagement of the lumbricals. And even just doing that twice a week for a good 6 to 8 weeks will really help to beef up those lumbricals. I also do want to once again reiterate the reasons why lumbricals are important. So lumbricals, there's a lot of different ways that lumbricals are helpful for climbing, right? They're helpful for slopers. You want to try to engage more of that position there. So they help in slopers as you're pulling hard. They get stressed, strained a lot when you're coming into like 2-finger pocket positions or even a mono pocket. So you want to be cautious not to strain the lumbricals there. When it comes to crack climbing, this automatically is engaging those lumbricals when you're trying to stick that hand in there. Lumbricals also play a huge role in slopey pinch climbs. A lot of times if you're run into a pinch and there's like not really a good edge to like crimp onto that pinch, lumbricals play a huge role in applying that direct pressure, and you're squeezing and you're getting more of that contact with the lumbricals and be able to pull. So there's a wide variety of ways where lumbricals play a huge role in climbing, and I think would be advantageous for you to build up those strengths, like be aware of when it could potentially get injured and how to prevent that from happening. I think will allow you to be climbing at a safer manner, as well as you'll climb a lot stronger. Thanks so much for watching. If you really enjoyed the information about lumbricals, be sure to like and subscribe. From a physical therapist perspective, I'm going to really try to throw out a lot of content out there for climbers so that they can have a better awareness, better understanding of their own body and how to climb safely.